Hey, I'm Jeff and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to share with you 5 essential tips for your jade plant in spring. This is going to set it up for the best possible growth through the growing season. So let's check it out. The first biggest change is how you water the plant. Once spring hits, jades naturally require more water as they're exposed to more sunlight. Generally, over the winter months, you don't water a jade plant very often just because it has very slow growth and sometimes even no growth, so they do go in a dormant state. Once spring approaches and the plant is exposed to more sunlight, it's going to start photosynthesizing more, so it's going to require more water. Now, regardless of whether you're in winter or summer, checking the leaves will tell you everything you need to know about watering the plant. If they are thick and plump and firm, no water. Now sometimes that might be, a month or maybe 2 months in the winter. It just all depends on the leaves. They store a lot of water in the leaves as well as the trunk. So if they're nice and firm, don't water. If you can fold or bend a jade leaf like a taco, then it needs to be watered. Following those 2 rules will hopefully prevent overwatering, especially in the winter months. If the plant isn't receiving a lot of light, then it's not photosynthesizing and it's not using the water in the soil, so it's just going to remain soggy, and that's where you run into those root rot conditions. So right now, this one needs water. So I just have filtered tap water, and I'm just going to completely soak this entire pot. So jades like a lot of water. They just don't like to sit in soggy soil for any length of time. So you want a well-draining mix, but I'm going to use this entire watering can just to ensure that it is thoroughly watered. I'll let that drain through, and it's going to come out the bottom of the drain hole. So I got about a quarter of the can left, and I'm just going to dump it in. You can see it's already coming out the bottom. Now with the increased watering, you also have to start giving it some fertilizer or some nutrients. Don't overcomplicate this. I just use this generic cactus liquid plant food. You can add 7 drops into a container of water and then you water it in. Now jades need that extra boost in springtime to help start new growth on the stems. So you're going to start to see some new branches and leaves. Plants need food as well. This one is an NPK value of 277. Now I was kind of wondering why the nitrogen was a little bit lower than the rest. Now a quick little Google search tells me that the nitrogen is responsible for new growth, so new branches, leaves and all that kind of stuff. Now the reason why it's lower on cactus and succulents, generally these are slower growing plants, and if you just give them a big hit of nitrogen, you're going to get probably some long stretched out leggy stems. So you want to give it just a nice steady growth rate, I guess. So that's what the nitrogen. So the phosphorus and potassium, they are responsible for the overall root growth as well as just the health of the plant. So that's just a real quick tutorial. So all I'm going to do for this is just add in 7 drops into my watering can. So it's just got a little dropper thing here. So roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's generally the whole thing. Now I'm going to add some water into this, and I'm going to add it into the plant that I just watered. It's recommended that you don't give fertilizer to soil that is absolutely bone dry. You just don't want to shock or burn the roots. I've never really had any issues with that, but I like to water my plant first with just straight water, and then I'm going to, again, give it more water now with fertilizer. Watering with the fertilizer is a little bit different than just generally watering the plant. Like, I don't have to give this entire can. I just want to make sure that all of those roots get some fertilizer. So I'm going to give it probably about that, let it drain through, and that is a thoroughly watered and fertilized plant. I will give fertilizer every second watering. So the next time I water the plant is just going to be with straight filtered tap water. And then after that, I'm going to add in some fertilizer. So every second watering, I fertilize my jade plants. What I just explained is what I do in the summer months, but what do I do in the winter? Most times you'll hear people say to not fertilize a jade plant over winter just because it has gone dormant or it's got very slow growth. Basically what I say is if you are still seeing growth, if there's new leaves popping out, then you can still fertilize. Now in the winter, you can probably reduce the fertilizer amount. So instead of the 7, 8 drops, you can maybe do 3 or 4 in a can of water, and maybe every second or third watering, then you can water in some fertilizer. But if it's still growing in the winter months, if you have it in bright light and you're seeing new leaves, then you can still give it fertilizer. If you are not seeing any growth, then just stop fertilizing, and then you can restart in the springtime. Today's not a great example just because it is quite overcast. The sun is definitely trying to peek out, but I think we're going to get some rain later. But this is the time of the year when you want to start prioritizing the amount of light that your plant gets. Placing them in your brightest unobstructed window, so that means like no trees blocking the sun, no other buildings. This just so happens to be my south-facing window, and like I said, it's very overcast today. Jade plants need at least 6 hours of direct light throughout the day. Now, ideally, a south or west-facing window would be good for these plants. Now, if you don't have optimal light, then you can always use a grow light. Last week, I made a video getting a thicker trunk on your plant, and right now, in kind of the middle of May, in that video, it was around 4,000 to 5,000 foot candles. Right now, even though it's kind of overcast, it is only getting 600 foot candles, so that is medium light. But generally, you want over 1,000 foot candles, and like I said, maybe half a foot back from the window here, it receives around 5,000 foot candles here in the springtime. So a nice way to tell whether your plant is receiving sufficient light is when you start to see little red tips or the edges of the leaves. This is telling you that your plant is receiving a lot of light. It is called sun stressing. It's the plant's natural response to high light, but it's not harmful or anything like that. This just is a nice way to tell whether your plant is receiving sufficient light. Now, if your plant is not close to a window, like a south or west facing window, you just don't want to throw it in there and expect it to start growing and thriving and all that kind of stuff. You want to slowly acclimate it. So if you have a table off to the side, or maybe just pull it back a couple feet, and then over the next couple of weeks, just slowly introduce it to higher light so that you don't burn the leaves. It's quite obvious when you get leaf burn, because it'll be basically like just a burnt patch on the leaf. It will not heal from that. So yeah, just slowly acclimate it to high light and you'll do fine. Now, the last light tip is just rotating your plant every so often. So maybe once a week, just kind of turn it like a quarter turn, just so you don't get all the leaves facing one side. Or even better yet, get yourself a little turntable like this and just spin your plant around. So every so often, just give it a little bit of a rotation, and that way it keeps all the leaves looking more uniform and bushy, and yeah, just overall better. So rotate your plants, people. Now, the last tip is the scariest, and it's pruning. You don't necessarily have to prune your plant, but sometimes if your plant grows in the winter, you can get kind of long, leggy stems. So you just want to cut those back so everything is kind of nice and short, I guess. You don't want leggy sections, so all I do is take some pruning shears and just go around the plant. Now, what I've done in some other videos, the last video specifically with the getting a thicker trunk, if you want to go check that out, I'll leave it at the end of the video here. But in the springtime, I go around to every tip of every stem and just cut it off. This will promote branching. So it'll get a branch from the same sides as the leaves just below it. So there will be a branch right there and there. And that's what I do every spring, just to kind of keep the canopy nice and dense. This one I did a really hard prune. So obviously I cut everything off, like every leaf and branch, just so I can shape it in the way that I want. So it'll look like more of a tree-like structure like this. And as you can see, it's getting all these new little baby leaves and branches, and yeah, they respond really well to pruning. So I know it can be quite intimidating and scary to do even a small prune. Like, you don't have to cut it back like what I did here. This is a very hard and aggressive prune. I am obviously comfortable with this type of pruning, but what I typically recommend to people that have never pruned before, just take one branch, make a cut, and then just over the next several weeks, just see how it responds. And that just kind of builds your confidence for more pruning down the road, and just understanding how the plant grows after you prune. And it is extremely healthy to prune your jade plants. You're not going to kill it. It's not going to die. I did a very hard prune on this, as well as a root prune. And as you can see, it is doing just fine. Sometimes it takes a little bit to start the process, but once you start getting all these new little leaves and buds and stuff, then that just kind of reassures you that pruning is good for jades. So yeah, I think it's pretty neat how you can just manipulate a plant into growing a certain way. So instead of just getting really long and leggy and eventually flopping over, you can control the growth by simple pruning. Now, I like to prune these plants into like a tree-like structure. Now, I know there are different versions of jades out there. This is my hanging basket. These are all propagations from the mother plant from a few years ago, and I've stuffed them all in one pot. So you don't have to have it in a tree-like structure like this one. You can have multiple stems in one pot and it'll grow just fine. Now last year I did cut this one back. You can see right there, it branched out in 2 spots. So I cut back every stem, and I did very similar to what I did this. I cut off every branch and leaf just because this one was infested with thrips. There was a lot of leaf damage, so I just cut off every branch and every leaf, and now it is looking just absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, this is one that's going to be needing a repot soon, but pruning is healthy and beneficial to your plant. It's not going to die, but if you choose not to prune, that is completely okay as well. Here's another example of a really cool jade that I have. This is a stem that I just laid horizontal in the pot, and it started to grow. So everything just started to grow vertically, and you can see all these sun-stressed leaves. It's super dehydrated. I just gave it some water. I definitely left it a little bit drier than I normally would. So it got some water, it got some fertilizer, and yeah, these leaves will plump up just nicely. But this is just another nice, cool project that I'm working on right now. And every single jade plant that I have in my collection, including this, came from the mother plant back here. This one is now probably about 20 years old. It at one point, all these stems were just kind of like flopped over, drooping over the side, and just learning from pruning, it was able to, I guess, get it upright again. I'll come over here, and I did a hard prune on this one last year as well, and you can see it's got some nice, beautiful growth through the stems and branches and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope you found it useful and informative for your jade plants in the springtime. Like I said, I will leave the how to get a thicker trunk video up in the top corner here if you just want to click that, or it'll be in the description of this video as well. If you have any comments or questions, please leave a comment down below as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching all my videos. Take care, everyone. Bye.